Okay, so I've drawn some text and now I want to draw some dimensions. And so just like text, being annotation, you should make a style first for your dimensions before you attempt to make a dimension. So it's in the same place on the Home tab when you click on that annotation menu or the arrow next to annotation, and then it's the second option there. So below the text style button, you've got a dimension style button there at the end on the left. Clicking there, and I've definitely got a few more dimension styles than you will have, but that's fine. I'm going to start with one that you will have. There it is, ISO 25. So if you haven't done anything yet with your dimensions, you'll have that ISO 25 style already made. And then if you select, maybe it's just select that first if it isn't selected, and then you can click the new button to make a new style from scratch. And I'll call it M1. Doesn't really matter what name you give it because you'll probably only have one dimension style that you need to use. So, so again, I'll call it that. You can call it anything you like. And then, again, I'm going to tick Annotative. And then continue. Okay, so then the way I like to go through these tabs is from right to left. So the first tab on the right that you need to use is primary units. Don't worry about tolerances or alternative units. So again, just starting on primary units and then going down through the settings. Unit format can leave on decimal. Precision can set to 0 without any decimal places, unless you want to measure fractions of a millimetre, but normally for buildings you don't need that. And then the decimal separator I'm going to set to a period because we still have some decimal places. And then round off is an option, and you shouldn't always use it, but sometimes it'll help you. So I might set that to 1 just in case, but you'll see later that sometimes that can be set to 5 or even 10 to round it off to the nearest 5 or 10 millimetres, which isn't a bad idea. Otherwise, the only other option there is under angular dimensions, making sure it's again on decimal degrees, and then the precision on 0.0. I'll just show you one other option there for the units format for angular dimensions on architectural drawings and sometimes on engineering drawings as well. They sometimes prefer degrees, minutes and seconds. I just wanted to point that out because I've had a few students lately who've somehow gotten through high school without ever seeing that. I don't know how, but apparently they don't teach it in all the maths in high school. Degrees, minutes and seconds. Oh, okay, so you need to have a look at that then. So I'll just... Oh, right, okay, but in 2 units... Yeah, oh, okay, mate, yeah. But see, a lot of the time they don't even do maths in the last 2 years. Yeah, I can't believe it, because in design you need it. And so, you know, trigonometry, things like that, they're all really important things for design. Anyhow, so degrees, minutes and seconds, that's why I pointed out, because it's a format that you need to recognise, and you can see there, that's what's written. It's got 60 degrees and 0 seconds. So if that said 60 degrees and, let's say, 20 seconds, it's just dividing it, sorry, 20 minutes, I mean, it's just dividing it into increments of 60. So it's a 60th of a degree. So if I've got 20 minutes, that's 20 60ths, which is a third of a degree. So, so you'll see that quite often, and you can easily change the option here. But I'll leave this on decimal for now, and then the most important thing is that you have some sort of precision, not 0, because you usually want to see fractions of an angle. So going across to the next tab, Fit, all you need to do there is check that Annotative is ticked, and then we can move on. For the next tab, if you go to the Text tab, then you'll see most likely the text style will be standard. Click on the Browse button next to that, button with the 3 dots, and then you should make a new text style for your dimensions. So click on the New button, give it a name. So I'll call it dim1 as well. And I usually like to set a really basic font for dimensions like Roman S or Romans, which is a single line font. And you don't need to tick annotative or set a height. In fact, you shouldn't. So make sure you leave the height at 0 and don't tick annotative. So then I can just click apply, close, and choose that text style dim1 from this list now.
So which text did you choose? Roman what?
Roman S.
IV or 150?
Oh no, without anything else. So it's just the one above that. So I see how in the list here I've got IV 25 and then above that
Sure,
is,
right.
sure. So,
Where did you say, once you set with the text, where did you go, the font name, where did you go from there? Did you get on apply?
and then just apply and close. Yeah.
And then you select these things from
Yeah.
that standard.
Yeah. That's right. So the reason you don't set the text style in the text settings is because you can set it here. So they're 2.5, and I'll leave it on that. So 2.5 should be the height in this dialog box, not the other one. And then on the next tab, symbols and arrows.
See how your dim one, you've got text colour.
Yeah,
Yours is black and mine is white. Is that okay?
Is that
that's
because
fine.
we're on the black page?
Yeah, that's right. If you're on the model tab, that's right. Yeah, black and white. Yep, same thing. Yep. So again, now if I go to symbols and arrows, then I'm going to change the first option there from closed filled to architectural tick, and then the second should change automatically. And then the leader, I'll change to right angle, but that's up to you. You can use almost any arrow there for the leaders. And so that's everything for symbols and arrows. Now I can go to the lines tab, and I'm going to extend or change extend beyond ticks to 1.5. And then I'm going to click into extend beyond dim lines down the bottom right, and you can see then what that's done. It should have extended the dimension line, which is this line under the text. You can see it's extended it beyond the tick a little bit.
Mine changed the number. Mine is 1.2505.
Oh, that's okay. Yep, that's fine. So, so here again, extend beyond dim lines. I might change that to 1.5 as well, just so that they're even. And then offset from origin, I'll change to 5. And you'll see that should bring the extension lines back from the thing they're measuring. Okay, so finally I'm going to tick fixed length extension lines, and I'll make those 8. Make the length there 8. So that's it, and then click OK. So now finally, you just want to make sure that the one you've made is the current dimension style. Up here you can see it says dim1. If it isn't, you can just select it and then click Set Current, and then close. And then you can see I'm on a layout, so I'm going to go back to the Model tab, bottom left, and then go to my first plan, and really important, make sure that the scale in the bottom right there is set to 1 to 50 before I draw my dimension. And then I'm going to change to the layer that I've made for my dimensions. So I've already made a layer called Annotative. And then to draw the dimensions finally, I'm going to use linear. So this is, again, in that annotation panel. If it doesn't say linear there in the top right, you can just click on the down arrow there and then choose linear. And so I'll start with the outside dimensions. I'm going to click on the bottom left corner of the room. You can see in my case it's not snapping, so I need to turn Object Snap on down here. If you're getting the endpoint symbol, that means it's already on. So I can now snap to that bottom left corner, and then I'll click on the top left corner and then bring the dimension out to place it. And notice how the extension line is fixed. The length stays the same once I go beyond a certain point. If I go really close, then it gets shorter, but when I come out a fair distance, then it's going to keep it the same length, which is a good thing. So don't worry that it looks a bit different to the example you've been given. This is actually better to have it this way.
But it's to go that far out.
Yeah, yep. Yep, you've got room, and it keeps it clear of the plan. So then I'll draw another linear dimension. And just as an example, I'm just going to show you what happens if I go from the same point in the bottom left corner, and then now I'm going to go to the top right corner. Now, if I come across to the left, you can see it's giving me exactly the same thing. So that's just to show you how that linear tool works, because you might have found that you can use other tools and do something similar, but linear is generally the best option because it only gives you either vertical measurements, or if you move the other way, you can see now it's giving me a horizontal dimension. So it depends on which way I move. But again, I've clicked on diagonal points, but even so, it's only going to give me either that vertical or horizontal measurement. So now I can place this up above for my horizontal dimension. Yes, yeah, that's right. So I'll just repeat that now with the linear tool again, and I'm going to click on the bottom left corner and then again go diagonally to the inside corner, but we know it won't give us the diagonal measurement, it's going to give us the wall thickness no matter which way we go, because it's again limited to either horizontal or vertical. So I can just place that to one side. Don't worry that the 100 is going to one side, that's because it won't fit inside. Okay, and so then you could repeat linear for the next dimension, but another option is to go to the Annotate tab, and then you'll see there's a Continue tool. And so if you click Continue, it'll pick up the last dimension, and then you can just continue on from there. So now I can click onto the top right, top left inside corner, and then I can go to the very outside corner, and it's just going to keep going. So when you're finished, press Enter, and then either Enter or Escape to finish the dimension command altogether. So you can see now that my dimensions are a little bit too close together to be able to read clearly, especially up in this corner. So I'm going to select the larger one, and you can see it's giving me all these different grips, those blue handles. So you can use any of those to adjust your dimensions. If I click on this one on the bottom left corner, I can bring that over to the left further to separate them more. And that's already probably enough to be able to read this, but I'll just show you then if I go and select this dimension for the 100mm wall thickness, I can select that node for the text and use that to adjust the text position as well. Now it's locked to the object, so if I go down or if I turn auto off and then go a bit closer, it'll let me put the text there, but I'll lose that later. And that's okay, as long as it's clear, I can bring that right in, and that's still fairly clear. So I could do the same thing down here. So I can again select that, and then the node for the text this time's in the center, but I can still again adjust this, even though you can see now that it's, again, trying to keep it in only certain positions. Okay, so there's an option for that. If you go back to the dimension style, you can adjust that setting, but for now, I think it's fine if you leave it like that. And then just continue drawing dimensions. So for most of these drawings, you only need linear dimensions. You shouldn't need to use any of these other tools. And I know a lot of people want to use this one because that's the new tool with the big shiny button. But that one's actually going to do too much. You probably get it to work, but basically it gives you a lot of different options that you probably don't need. You can see here, if I accidentally go diagonally, it's going to give me a diagonal measurement, which is actually something you don't want. So I'll cancel that, pressing escape, and I'll go back to linear. And now, again, I can, even if I click diagonal points, make sure that I get a horizontal measurement. So again, just maybe to do one more, I'll start with the wall thickness. Again, it doesn't matter if I click diagonal points, it's only going to give me either vertical or horizontal. Place my dimension, and now I can go back to continue, and just click on these other 2 points. Enter to finish drawing, and then enter again to finish the command, and now I can select that dimension and use the grips if necessary, just to adjust the position. And so there we are. And so again, you can just replicate the dimensions that you can see here. And the general rule is that if you can, you should put the dimensions outside the drawing. But there'll be situations where that's not practical. So here you can see it's just the dimension for that table that's in the middle of that plan. And there is an option to put centre lines in, but in this case I think it's probably easier to use a linear dimension again, which I'll just draw using the centre of the table there. I'll just continue that. My table's a bit low actually, so I might just move all of that up a little bit. Now notice here I'm using the move command, so you can use any of the other commands you've been using on dimensions as well. So if I select those 2 dimensions, then I can click the move button, bring them both up, and then to do the centre line, again there is a centre line symbol and there are a few tools that'll do that automatically, but here it's probably easiest just to make some text. And so this is a good instance where single line text might be better than multi-line text. So generally multi-line text is probably better these days, but single line text is good for small pieces of text, especially if they need to be rotated. So again here I'll go to single line text, and then you need to click a start point, not a rectangle. Then it's going to ask you for the height. In this case it says 2.5 in brackets, so I'll press enter to keep that, and then it's going to ask for the rotation. So again it's mainly set up for text like that that needs to be rotated. In this case though, I want it to be 0 degrees, so again it says 0 in brackets, and I'll press enter to keep that. So I'll type in C, and you can see there it's doing the same thing as before. It's too small, so I'll press enter twice and delete that one, but then I'll repeat it, single line text, and going a bit faster this time, enter twice, and then see what's going on there. That's still the wrong size. So I'll just check what's going on there. There's some issue with the size. Oh, okay, so it's not using the right style. So I'll just check that. So here, when I go to my text panel, you can see dim1 has been set as my current style. I didn't mean to do that, but I can easily change this now back to note, which is the one I made. And then I'll, again, draw single line text. Enter twice, and now type C. And again, it seems strange, but enter twice to finish, because enter the first time just moves down to the next line. Just single line text does that. So enter again finishes it. And now maybe I'll select that, and just to make it look a bit more like the dimensions, I'm going to right click and go to properties. And now I'm going to change the style. It might seem strange, but I'm going to change it back to dim1. Notice how it doesn't change the height. Again, that's just an AutoCAD thing. Don't ask me why, but it doesn't pick up the height when you change the style. There is a reason, but I'm not going to go into it. So, so that's all I need to do before then copying it. So it's still selected. I'm going to now click the copy button, and then just make sure I'll turn ortho off as well, and then just place it sort of down and to the right a little bit. Then enter to finish, and now I'll double click on this and change that to an L. So that's probably as good as anything to make a centre line, and it's good practice using the text tool as well. On one of the drawings, you do need to use one other tool. So you'll see on the conference room plan, you need to show the radius as well. So that's just the final thing there. So same panel where you find the linear tool. If you click on the down arrow there, there is the radius tool. And then you just need to select the curve that you want the radius from, and then click where you want to place that. It's that easy. And again, don't worry that it looks a bit different to the one in the example. It's actually better this way if it doesn't have that line going all the way to the centre. I think it looks much neater that way. And so that's it. That's all you need for the dimensions. Oh, sure.